guys are doing well. I am, as always, really excited to be with you all this morning because, one of the things I do in looking at this is, what is the stuff that gets kind of like the most engagement when it comes to views, the longest views, interactions, things of that nature. And so by bringing content to you guys that makes sense, I found that it's some expireds, canceled, listing strategies of how do we lead with this cash offer and then ultimately win the deal, whether that be an acceptance of the cash offer or you guys are able to convert that to a listing. As always, those of you that don't know me, I am Eliot of Zoodealio. I'm really excited to be with you all here today. And again, what we are going to be focusing on in today's session is being able to ultimately use your unique cash offers, your cash offer platform, to be able to generate new high quality seller leads. And then from there, once we generate that lead, we have to be able to convert that into business. So I'm going to take you guys through some frameworks today of not only how to generate the lead, but then from there, how to nurture that lead, taking them through a value ladder process so that we win them over. And some things that you may not know are at your fingertips inside of the marketing library. So one of the big things I'm going to be talking about today is being able to use a quick pop by drop off package, right? There's so many houses that are available. And so I want you to expand your horizons. I'm going to be using canceled expireds today, but if you have again, I think a few sessions ago, and I could even touch on it today, the likely sellers. So many people from a statistical standpoint are going to fit into a likely seller category. So whether they're ready to sell now or in the next 18 months, these are people that we probably want to be getting our message in front of. And so do yourself a favor, pay attention to these types of things. Your business is always going to grow to the extent that your audience does. So by us scaling up our message to a larger and broader audience, we are ultimately putting our hat in the arena and ultimately giving ourselves a chance to grow our business. We're going to be focusing on really how to convert sellers into listings with cash offers, right? That's really what I want you to understand. So those of you that are watching this, if you're anything like Evie and you have that seller that's just kind of stonewalling you, what they're doing, that's a guarded thing. And that's because so many people are attacking them with the same offer. They're attacking them with the same, they've lost confidence in the goal that they're trying to achieve, which is to sell the house, or maybe the reason has changed. They no longer have the need to sell the property. The job transfer didn't come through. Something changed in the life where that sales no longer needs to happen. Those are always the circumstantial things that we want to be paying attention to. I want to be very clear. These frameworks that I'm about to go through with you all will work with any seller lead type. Of course, we maybe have to cater the message slightly so that it applies to the type of lead source, but the frameworks that I'm going to show you are absolutely going to be pertinent to anybody that's interested in selling their house. Now, one of the biggest benefits that you guys are able to supply in this is being able to give them an option that allows them to pick a timetable that makes sense, right? There's so many times that Kayla or myself have shown you stats around one of the most important things that people want to be in control of when selling their house is that time frame. So when you can give them the option of selling on a time frame that they get to choose, that is a massive plus in the process. And then additionally, when we can potentially give them a cash offer that's in line with the market value, that is another thing that's going to get you into the conversation. Would you say your market is in an inventory crisis? I understand money's a little bit expensive right now, which of course that is causing the market to slow down a little bit. Prices are high. And I'm just curious, are you in your local specific market, would you say that you guys are in an inventory shortage, inventory crisis, which is causing some problems? I'd be really curious to know from you on that. So now that we've established that everybody has a bit of an inventory crisis, this message today is going to be a little bit more pertinent for you and your particular business. Okay, so one of the things I want to look at is why is it that not only with the commission lawsuits that are out there and so many IDX companies. So those of you that don't know what an IDX is, for the record, that's an acronym that stands for Internet Data Exchange, and essentially what it is your MLS being able to exchange data and display it with an agreement, right, to the public, right? So through your particular website, such as a Boomtown, a Sync, any one of your local IDX providers, that's you being able to display the available inventory. That lead comes in, and then usually there'll be an automatic registration, or after 3 picture views, it'll pop up with a lead capture form, and we all know that's how you're generating some potential leads. At its core, Zillow, their predominant offer is an IDX. Redfin, same thing, right? So just, making sure that everybody's tracking with me on that. Now, the reason why so many people are giving that is because many sellers and all buyers obviously start their search for the property that they're looking for. So even home sellers will often start the home selling process by looking for what's available out there, right? So that's where we want to be able to now capitalize on those leads, because statistics show, per Zillow, per National Association of Realtors, that over 60% of everybody that's selling their house is also looking to buy a home. So when you really look at that from a statistics standpoint, that's 1.5 transactions per every converted lead. So that's the whole prospect smart. I think that's where that statement of list to live, kind of comes into play, right? All these adages that you guys have probably heard ever since you've gotten yourself into the real estate business, right? That's why even, there's several different business models. One of my favorite books I go back to, because I think it's a true Bible of our industry, is The Millionaire Real Estate Agent. It talks about a framework in there called the 3 L's: leads, listings, and leverage, right? In almost that particular order, right? Where we have to have a certain amount of leads that get us to a certain amount of listings. And then after we have a certain amount of listings, we need to go into leverage, right? That's how we're going to be able to grow and scale our business. It's a framework of growth. One of the things I want you guys to be aware of from a statistics standpoint is about 40% of the people that their house expires will relist with a new agent. And actually, when we put this all together, I found some conflicting information where some people say in other parts of the country it'll be even a little bit higher. And anytime that days on market has gone over 90, that they're actually more 70% are going to end up listing with a different agent. So one of the things I think that, again, I'll let you guys kind of look at this and you can check out the different stats, because what I want to really dive into today is ultimately the frameworks that are going to help agents like Evie out there. How do we get ourselves into the conversation? But also, how are we identifying them? Because speed is absolutely a pertinent and important piece. Then from there, we want to focus on the value. And then from there, it's as soon as we can create value, it is absolutely about relationship, which is at its core what we're always after. Is we want to create a relationship and ultimately help the people achieve their particular goals. One of the big things I want to introduce you guys to is, actually, let's go back here. Nearly 40% of all expired listings or expired leads will list with a new agent within that 30-day time frame. That's a good percentage. But on the flip side, look at that. 35% will also leave their house off the market for at least a month. Well, depending on your MLS and whatever the local rules are, sometimes it's going to have to be off the market, depending on where you're at in the country, 60 days or even 90 days off the market before that day counter will reset. And if you're anything like me, once upon a time, again, I would say probably 85% of my lead generation effort was canceled and expired. And it's because it's the most notariable list. Inventory was a little bit higher at the time. Houses were not selling in 2 or 3 weekends. But again, I think that when we look at sometimes what's going on with the expireds or the canceleds that are happening inside of our market right now, price or condition, or the agent probably overpromised and under-delivered. So what do I mean when I say they overpromise and under-delivered? Well, because the inventory crisis that we're in, pricing on the home is, let's just say comps showed 550 and they were trying to stretch to 575 or even 600,000, right? So 10% above market. But when we have cost of money at 7% or even higher, depending on what that buyer pool is and their credits or credit, down payment, etc., lots of variations there. That home becomes very unaffordable and the buy pool is shrinking. So even though there's a shortage, right? And if on top of it, if the house doesn't look good, doesn't smell good, and isn't in that top 5% of homes that are on the market, well, you're a lot of times going to position yourself for that property to not sell. Even though the bones of the house may be good, the demand of the area may be good, that agent is coming in and trying to push the ceiling too much, and they're technically buying that listing by over-promising something that's going to be very hard to deliver on. And they're ultimately speculating, right? And like many agents, they're going to go in there and say, hey, Mr. Seller, I can get you $600,000. The other agent that they interviewed 2 days ago told them, $565,000. Of course, they love the fact that you're so convicted that you can get $600,000. But then, 35 days in, you start talking about price reduction. They let you price reduce to, let's say, $585,000. 90 days hit, and then all of a sudden it expires and they choose to not renew. So now that we kind of have that framework laid of what you guys could be walking into, this is exactly where we get to do something a little bit different. Putting this together, I want to show you guys this because, again, this is in the marketing section for you guys to be able to, where you can kind of do a pop by drop off. This is where you potentially have multiple things here that I want to show you on how to capture that lead. You have a couple of options here. Number one, you have the people that you make contact with, right? And then you have the people that don't answer the phone. And it is quite often that you'll be calling and you're the 40th person that's called them, or you're the 50th person that's called them. And that's where we need to be able to actually do a couple of different things. So you have a couple of different options here that I want to share with you on this. Number one, I would just simply say, hey, Evie, it's Eliot over at Zoodealio Real Estate. Hey, I wanted to give you a quick call because I'm sure you already guessed that you know that your house is off the market. And you probably are going to be getting bombarded with a lot of calls. Well, I'm calling for something a little bit different than trying to list your house on the market like most of the other agents that you're working with. I happen to be working with several different cash buyers in the area that are looking to purchase your home. And I was curious if I was able to get you a cash offer that made sense for you and your family, and you got to pick your close date. Is that something that would be of interest to you? Well, yes. Well, why didn't you bring that offer 2 days ago? And it's probably just a lowball offer, right? This is their response. I'm playing devil's advocate here. Why didn't you bring this offer 2 days ago when your house was on the market, or when my house was on the market? And is this going to be just some lowball offer because I'm not interested in giving my house away and dealing with some BS cash offer? Let's say that that's the type of framework that you get. And this is your response. Hey, I totally understand where you're coming from. However, one of the things I like to point out is usually there's two processes in getting a home sold. Number one is actually making sure that your agent sells your house to all of the other agents and make sure that your property is aware. And unfortunately, I was not aware of your house until it showed up as an expired listing. I did a review on your house and it looks like your house would fit for these particular buyers. So there's no obligations or anything that comes with this offer. It looks like I'm going to be in your neighborhood today at about 3 o'clock or 5 o'clock, whatever. And I wanted to know if I popped by and dropped off what their potential offer could be, if that's something that you'd be interested in taking a look at, right? So now, yes, no, maybe so. I mean, again, if they're interested in getting the property sold on any level, in most cases, they're going to be wanting to see what you have to offer in that. So now that we have that framework, guys, I want us to understand that here's that pop by play. Okay. So number one, you have a cover page. This would be your picture, your logo, your, kind of signature, right? And from here, I want to start operating off of enthusiasm, right? Like, hey, let's celebrate that moving day. Now we are going to be able to show your particular logo. Like I said, we're going to put in some QR codes in this. You have several different options, and even from a more detailed look, if you guys want, we just actually redid the PDF download for the Cash Plus. That's all in there. I would do kind of an at a glance. So one, as you can see with this, and I would probably keep it very, very light, because anytime you start telling people around a structured offer right out of the gate, they may not, first of all, they're probably not going to understand it. So that's where we really want to just lead with, hey, here's the cash offer, 1, 2, and 3. This lets you pick the close date. This one has an option to be able to upgrade your house and ensure that you're going to sell for top dollar. Hey, while I'm here, walk in this particular property, let me verify conditions. So now you can talk intelligently and say, hey, what if I was to introduce you into where we come in, paint the house, change some of the flooring, and maybe update 1 or 2 things. And it looks like if we do that, I could potentially sell the house for 25 grand more, right? So these are the tools that you guys are going to be able to use to start putting yourself in a whole different position than all the other agents that they're talking to. Moving on. Right? This is where this is, I'm going to do this, and I would rehearse this, okay? Because, Evie, you have to be able to do this literally in about 5 minutes of you popping by, and maybe if they let you in the house to say, hey, while I'm here, would you mind just giving me a quick 2-minute walkthrough on the house? I just need to verify condition, snap a couple of pictures of some of, the water heater and a couple of other things that the buyer is going to require me to do to verify that this is a valid cash offer. These guys, they're big institutional buyers, and what they want to do before I can finalize an offer, I can give you a ballpark offer right now, but in order for me to finalize it and move anything forward of what their final position would be, I need to verify condition and snap a couple of pictures that I'd send over to them. Okay, so now they would potentially take you through the house, okay? And then from there, what I want to do is I'm going to just let them know, hey, like I said, I work with several different buyers, and while I got you here and I'm in front of you, tell me if what is that time frame that you're looking to move from this house to your new house? Is there any specific needs? Right? Maybe it's a time frame thing where when my house sells, those types of things, which is most of the case. But in the event that it's hardship, which I think that we could be looking at coming down the pike on some level, is people that need to sell, right? They're behind on their mortgage, things like that, right? There's the cash plus in that scenario could absolutely work wonders for them. Because they can come in, they can now lease back their house for 60 days doing a late checkout. So where they go find the place where they're potentially going to rent because they would, be late on their mortgage in that circumstance, and they're more than likely not going to be able to qualify for a new house for probably a year due to the lates that they have on their credit at that point. However, you're still solving a massive problem for them. Okay, and an additional one. Let's say that it's one where it's a job relocation and they're, kind of weighing things out, and they wanted to prepare because, they kind of need to be somewhere. So now they potentially could sell and lease back their house on a month-to-month basis for up to a year, right? So these are all these little different strategies that you guys are going to be able to give to them. Of course, being able to give them a straight cash offer. Those aren't as competitive right now from, all of the hedge funds. I do expect them to bounce back, really as soon as probably some of the cost of capital comes down a little bit, meaning loans. And then of course, that other option is what if they don't necessarily want to do any of these cash offer options, but it's one of those houses that if we put $50,000 of rehab into it, clean up into it, remodel in it, it's going to sell for $100K more. All my California people on here, Colorado people, even Florida people, Texas people, we should definitely be looking at this strategy, even East Coast, because there's a lot of properties out there that could use some update, and people unfortunately don't have the cash to go in and update their house. Well, this is an option for you to bring to them to where their house can be rehabbed and then sold for top dollar. Zero out-of-pocket costs, zero swinging hammers, zero dealing with contracts, right? Zoodealio and the partners handle all of that with you, and then of course you get to sell a dialed-in listing for top dollar, making you look good, creating raving fans, all of those things, okay? And then the final thing I want to point out, depending on where you're at in the country, this is something I have been diligently working on again, is being able to turn that buyer's offer into cash, right? So if you're in Florida, Georgia, Texas, New Mexico, California, Arizona, Nevada, a couple other key places, you can actually turn that buyer to cash. And so just an FYI, because I know I haven't talked about it that much for the last probably year or or so, it is an opportunity for you to have the buyer buy their new house in cash, and then it just gets replaced with their mortgage for a 1% fee. It's a very nominal thing. And if it applies in your market, honestly, it's a no-brainer. There's no cost to the rate. There's no extra fees other than the 1%. And if we negotiate the deal right, you can get concessions, price reduction. There's just so many variations of why that makes sense. Email me, because if I do it in the chat on this, if you want to verify with me, it applies in your market. Email me, Eliot, Eliot @zoodealio.com, and I can do that if you're curious if it applies in your market. So anyhow, going back on, these are the different options that I'm going to run through them real quick. And then from there, I'm going to just kind of have that simple drop package for them, right? Now that we pop by, Evie, and we drop that package, right? So now, I know that was kind of long-winded, so I'm going to recap that right now for you real quick. I'm going to pop by that homeowner and say, hey, thanks so much. I wanted to just drop this off for you because I see that, your house is really a nice property and should have been sold. These are different cash offer options that are going to allow you to pick your move date and ensure that you're never going to leave too much money on the table. Now, this may be for you and it may not be for you, because the way that these cash buyers work is every single one of these options I'm bringing to you actually gives you the upside of the open market. What that means is that they're going to buy the house in cash, then they're going to resell it, and that they would actually give you that additional equity. Now, why they do that is they charge a fee for that service. And that fee may not be for you, and you want to capitalize on all of that. What I can do for you in reference to these different cash offer options is I could show you what it would look like to compare this next to positioning your property properly on the open market in a time frame that makes sense for getting your house sold, right? So that's why I'm just going to leave that simple package with them. And then here's the goal, Evie, on this, right? So on all of these, let's go into a client. I want you guys to see this piece. When they enter in this offer dashboard, okay, you are notified of them entering in, okay? So we can grab the QR code. You have several different options here. We can install that QR code, which is what I would do, inside of that brochure that I just gave you. Inside your Zoodealio, you can pull up the offer, save offer, right? And this will be the offer for that. And when they scan this QR code, it's going to give the different cash offer options breakdown if you wanted to be more detailed, right? So sometimes less is more. And you want to be able to just kind of give them one simple option that's going to be that cash offer that you're happy with, right? So those are two different things that you guys can drop off and leave with that homeowner. Now, the goal to that, like I said, Evie, is every time they scan that, it's going to pull them into the digital dashboard, which is what, this whole piece is. And every time they log into this, you're going to get a notification and a text message that they are entering into this particular offer dashboard. Now, last thing I want to let everybody know on this, that is playing the long game, to me is probably, again, I know I've shared pretty vulnerably over the years with you guys, and that, when I was an agent, I was pretty high producing, did well over 100 deals a year for several years running. And the important thing I want to share with you guys on that is the mistakes I made, right? I got great at prospecting myself. I had a team, I had ISAs, et cetera. And we hustled, right? Like about 2 listing appointments every single day were set that we would go on. We had like almost a 65% conversion ratio on those listing appointments. It was a pretty decent machine. But where I had failed was that long-term follow-up. Okay, I had focused on a niche and I had become, great at that particular niche. But where I failed was to continue to work with my existing clients, right? People that I had come in, created a service for, met all the pieces that we're talking about. Well, obviously people, buy again, sell again, etc. Investment properties. So what I want to do is invite you guys to what Blast ultimately solves. So here's the framework add-in for this. So let's say that Evie, Mr. Seller, that you just go by and drop off the package, says you follow up with him a week later or a few days, and they talk with you, they agree to talk with you on the phone. They decide that they don't want to sell right now. They're going to leave their house off the market and they're going to sell in the spring, sell in the fall, what have you. This is where Blast comes into play. You say, hey, I totally understand where you're coming from. However, what I want to do is invite you to a way that you can monitor your house's value and other insights that are going to go on with your property specifically. So why don't I set you up on a monthly report that you'll be getting, and it'll just kind of give you all the intel that you need on your property and allow you to watch and see what's going on. Does that sound fair enough? Yes. Boom, right? So then from there, we set them up on Blast, and every time they engage with that, you are notified. If they open it up 3 times in 1 month, you're notified. Right, so and do know that there's a whole series of likely events based on behavior metrics that we're building right now that will report back to you. These are the things that, quite frankly, that exist today that I gotta admit, I'm just so darn jealous as an agent, because they didn't exist back then. Darn, I mean, when I originally started, a CRM was barely just, kind of starting. Paper files, an accordion file system. It's funny looking back on all the changes. But anyhow, so what I'm getting at, guys, is use these things to your advantage. And when we look at this very, very simple framework, grow my audience, grow my business. And so sometimes when I'm growing my audience, that is that canceled and expired. Those are people that are potentially going to sell, whether they're ready to sell right now or in a year from now. When I'm in this business and my goal is to do 25, 50, 75, 100 transactions a year, and whether that falls this year or next year, right? Yes, it matters. I always want to do more business now, but at the end of the day, it's as long as I have a system and a process, I have a very repeatable, duplicatable business. And so that's where I want to make sure that I just kind of, talk about a few things here. Here's what I want us to do, right? I want us to look at that there's an intro, right? How am I introduced to these people? What is the timing of their need, right? Like, case in point, here's a simple way to think about this, right? If you're trying to introduce somebody to your new tasty food and solution, but they just ate and they're not hungry, you have bad timing. Regardless of how good your offer is, you're not really going to get that contact or the engagement from them because they're not hungry, right? This exact same framework of where we want to be with the listing process. So for example, if they're just not interested in selling their house or buying a house, etc., no matter how your timing is off, no matter how great your offer is, it's not going to matter, and you're not going to get contact or engagement, okay? So this is where we really need to look at. This is the importance of consistency of message, right? So if the consistency of my message is always following these parallels, well, when this timing triggers, right, that's when that intro is really going to make sense. And that's when my offer is also really going to make sense. It's going to inspire the contact and engagement that I'm looking for so that I can ultimately create the client. Okay, so this is where I want us to really look at, you guys have something that other agents don't have. You have a unique value proposition, and your job from there is to really find people that are looking to transact between now and the next 30 days. Then from there, you're putting everybody else in that bucket, you're putting that next group into bucket B, which is looking to transact in the next 6 months. And then from there is really that C bucket, people that are, out in the distance a little bit. And that's who we really want to double down on our attention. So when we build the system and the process to be able to categorize our people, that's what's going to allow us to be very effective in the conversion and very effective in the service that we bring to our clients. As always, guys, I want to say thank you so much for being on here today. I love working with you guys. Appreciate you. And as always, we will see you on the next one. Have a great week.